We will be recording. We're recording the session. So if you wanted to not be present with your camera or whatever, just to let you know. So I am Christine Skaman, and I am Program Director for a Food Nutrition and Health program in the Faculty of Land and Food Systems. And I've been involved in launching this program and making sure that it's developing. And today we're going to be giving you an overview of the aquaculture industry, mostly in BC, and some of the innovations, some of the career paths that you could be following. So our graduate certificate is currently running. It was our first year, so we've been very pleased with the way we've been interacting with industry and with other people on campus with it. And we're looking forward to our second cohort, which some of you might be part of. Now, just some nuts and bolts. So if you have questions, please use the chat, which is just that button at the bottom of your screen. And I'll be moderating those questions during the talk. Probably what we're going to do is just wait until we're finished the presentation, and then we'll address questions. And after that, if you feel comfortable asking questions in person, please feel free to do that as well. We'd love to be able to chat with you more face to face. So the other thing I should say is we're very pleased to have a number of the instructors who are currently teaching in the program. And so you'll have a chance to hear from them and ask them questions directly. And so that includes Wendy. Wendy, if you want to just wave a little bit, maybe. Oh, there's Wendy. Jason and Andrea.
And
actually,
Barry.
And Barry. Oh, Barry, where are you? There you are, sorry. Yeah, thank you. And the other instructor that you'll hear from is Justin Henry, but Justin Henry is also our business director. And so just a little bit of background that I'll give you on Justin is that he's a registered professional biologist. He actually graduated from UBC back in 1995 with a specialization in aquaculture. And now he holds a master's degree in aquaculture biotechnology from Aalborg University in Denmark. And he's got many years of industry experience. So he, along with our other instructors, are bringing a really good perspective to the program. In addition, Justin has more recently been involved in determining the standards for organic aquaculture in Canada. And so with that, I think I will turn the presentation over to Justin, and then, like I say, we'll be ready to answer questions for you as they come up.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Thanks for your interest here in aquaculture. I think that this perspective here of the Pacific Ocean gives us a pause to consider the potential for food production in the water, and think about the blue revolution of food production. Land and Food Systems at UBC recognizes this important role that aquaculture must play in food production. And during the fall term, we offer a graduate certificate in aquaculture program. The first cohort of students will be finishing the program next month, after which we'll start to prepare for students the following fall. The program consists of 7 courses. It's Aqua 101, which is aquaculture production systems. And then we have fish nutrition, feeds and feeding, fish health, finfish genetics and reproduction in aquaculture, ecological sustainability of aquaculture, business concepts in aquaculture, and seafood processing. We must plant the sea and herd its animals, using the sea as farmers instead of hunters. That is what civilization is all about. Farming, replacing hunting. That was the great marine explorer and researcher Jacques Cousteau in 1971. But aquaculture goes back much, much further than that. It has a rather long history dating back more than 4,000 years. The early development was before the advent of printing, and as such, the records are really just records that are narratives handed down from one generation to another. The first known written record is from 473 BC in a book entitled The Classic of Fin Culture, The Classic of Fish Culture by Fan Li. And here is a surviving image from that book. Finfish aquaculture made its way to Canada in the mid-1800s. It was initially for enhancement, and it was begun by Richard Nettle, the first superintendent of fisheries for Lower Canada. This is just a drawing of what a farm looked like there in 1877. But aquaculture in Canada also goes back much, much further than that. There are examples right here in British Columbia where local First Nations were building clam bed farms 3,500 years ago. If we jump ahead to 1950 and to the global stage, rainbow trout farming began to emerge on a commercial scale globally. And here's the growth over the past, 68 years in this case, with the data from FAO. And Atlantic salmon farming was later to emerge, but rapid in its development. Now, Canada only produces about 120,000 tons. However, Atlantic salmon is still Canada's #1 aquaculture product in terms of tonnage and revenue. And it's also British Columbia's #1 agricultural export. But salmon's not the only species with a rapid growth in production. This is what the world's fisheries and aquaculture have done over the past 70 years. Aquaculture surpassed farmed beef production in 2011 and has now surpassed wild fish production. It's also gaining, of course, on chicken and pork now. Now, I know that there are some people joining this webinar who will be graduating soon with a bachelor's degree. And some of you were not yet born yet back here in 1996 when the wild fishery peaked. So for those of you that fit that demographic, the wild fishery has been in decline for your entire life. Now, since 1996, technology has developed dramatically in every sector, even exponentially in some, including the fishing sector, where drones can be used to locate fish and sonar to view, in some cases, as with these sturgeon, every single fish. Yet we can't catch any more fish. When Cousteau uttered those words about aquaculture, only about 10% of stocks were overfished, as you can see in the top right corner of the graph, of the orange part of the graph, the overfished. So if you look to the right, now it's about 1/3 of the stocks are overfished. When you look at the white line on the graph separating underfished stocks, you can see the steep decline in that, the reduced number of stocks that are underfished. And this goes up to 2017, but of course it's continuing to fall. And when that drops to 0, the collapse will then start to become apparent to everybody. So why is salmon and aquaculture in general having such a rapid increase in production? Well, this is one of the reasons, and as is often the case, innovation is born out of necessity. And what are some of the other reasons? Why is it taking off? Well, it's extremely healthy to eat, and in particular with the DHA and EPA fatty acids. It tastes delicious, and so people want to eat it. And wealth has increased, so more people can afford to eat seafood. It's also become available in a variety of convenient forms, which students learn about in Aqua 507, seafood processing. There are also sustainability reasons. On the production side, fish convert feed more efficiently than other farmed animals. And how do they do that? Does anyone know? Does anyone want to guess? Feel free to, I don't know if the mics are open or not, but feel free to say or chat. There are many reasons. So one is that fish are poikilotherms, which means that they're the same temperature as the environment. So they do not have a big energy requirement to control their body temperature. Another is that because of the aquatic environment, building the bone mass is not required to counter the force of gravity. So it'd be very difficult for any terrestrial animal to have the feed conversion of that we see in fish. Edible yield is another factor. You can eat quite a bit of the fish that you harvest. And there are other considerations emerging globally, such as carbon footprint and how that compares to other species. And land use is another one. Now in 2018, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, or DFO, with input from multiple stakeholders and a workshop that was held at the Pacific Science Enterprise Center in West Vancouver, they developed a list of about 100 research priorities, which were divided into these priority categories: environment, nutrition, diversification, fish health, genetics, maturation. Now, both industry and DFO have been carrying out research in these fields, and students will visit PSEC, the Pacific Science Enterprise Center, as part of the certificate program. A main research focus around NetPen aquaculture has been on environmental interactions, such as benthic impacts, and how pathogens spread from wild fish into the farm and vice versa. Industry and DFO have focused research in this area. And these topics will be covered in Aqua 505, Ecological Sustainability of Aquaculture. Lots of new technologies are being used to monitor physical systems and to monitor the fish. Support industries are really innovating here. And keep in mind as we move through these slides that jobs are available throughout all of these areas of aquaculture, including research and innovation, production, the system designs, fish health, feed production, fish processing, environmental monitoring, breeding, genetics, and many other areas. Now, this program called Tidal is being developed by Alphabet together with Moe, is the largest salmon producer globally and in British Columbia, to help analyze the health, feeding, and behavior of the fish. The next several years will see significant improvements in these areas with the adoption of AI, IoT, and other technologies. As the global availability of fish oil and fish meal are finite, the industry is innovating with the development of new feed ingredients. One of the main emerging ingredients is insects, and in this case, black soldier fly larvae, for which there's a farm right here in the Lower Mainland. Another feed ingredient will be algae. This is an algae farm in the desert in New Mexico. These alternative feed ingredients will soon scale up in production, and students in the certificate program will learn about feed ingredients in Aqua 502, fish nutrition, feeds, and feeding. Industry is also innovating in terms of types of aquaculture systems. New production systems for salmon include open ocean and offshore systems as seen here. This is called Ocean Farm 1. It's the largest finfish cage in production so far. This image that's being delivered by barge from China to Scotland. There are also floating tank systems like this system designed right here in BC. And this tank's about to be launched into the ocean at a site in Norway. Students will learn about all of these types of systems in Aqua 501, aquaculture production systems. Another emerging type of system is called a recirculating aquaculture system, or RAS, or RAS. So in this system, in the tank, the circular tanks at the top, fish are introduced into those tanks. Feed is provided, water, and oxygen. So just like people, the fish produce ammonia, solid waste, and carbon dioxide. So the water leaves the tanks and enters into a solids mechanical filter where the solids are removed, a filter to disinfect, then a filter to strip out the carbon dioxide, a biological filter where you're growing bacteria to consume the ammonia, and then the water is returned to the fish. Systems are being built now that can recirculate in excess of 99.9% of the water flow. Now, while RAS has been in existence for a couple of decades now, some systems are recently being scaled up for the grow out of salmon to harvest size of around 5 kilos. This new farm in Florida is currently just finishing construction and has dozens of these large tanks where they plan to produce 10,000 tons of salmon per year, which will make it the largest RAS farm to date. With this trend in RAS comes a plethora of urgent areas of R&D. For example, these two compounds, geosmin and 2-methyl isoborneol. They exist in RAS as they do in many lakes and streams in British Columbia, and they cause an off flavor in the fish. Although finishing systems have been designed which enable the fish to purge those compounds, there's a lot of R&D being carried out and that still needs to be carried out to figure out how to consume those compounds within the system. So students will learn about these in Aqua 507 and Aqua 501. Another type of aquaculture system is organic aquaculture. It's not a specific technology that's used, but rather a manner in which the animals are farmed. Canada released its organic aquaculture standard in 2012, and it finally fell under regulation in 2019. Currently, in Canada, products that are certified organic under this standard include mussels, Chinook salmon, rainbow trout, coho salmon, sturgeon, seaweed, and a variety of plants. In addition to the environmental and regenerative and health reasons for organic farming systems, in some cases, the product can demand a premium in the market. Now, marketing and many other business concepts will be introduced in Aqua 506, business concepts in aquaculture. Students will mainly learn about aquaculture for commercial production, but the program also touches on aquaculture for the enhancement of wild stocks, which is carried out in British Columbia for sturgeon, trout, and salmon. While UBC's program is focused on finfish, other species are also discussed with specific guest lectures on farming of shellfish, farming of seaweed, and farming plants in aquaponics systems. Here we have the brewmaster and the kelp farmer, Terry Chopin in New Brunswick, trying out their new ale, which is made from farmed sugar kelp. Industry in BC and across Canada has been very proactive with fish health and biosecurity. I remember reading a statistic several years ago that showed that a single poultry farm in the Maritimes used more antibiotics than all of Canadian aquaculture combined. And students will learn about fish health in Aqua 503, Fish Health. In 2014, the Atlantic salmon genome was sequenced under a Genome Canada project, which has opened the door to an entirely new field of R&D and innovation. The coho salmon genome has now also been mapped. This is the Northern Divine coho broodstock farm, one of the sites that students visited during the program this year. And Aqua 504, finfish genetics, reproduction in aquaculture, will cover this material. The Graduate Certificate in Aquaculture program at UBC will cover the topics that I've just presented and many more. And again, these are the 7 courses which will be taught. Aqua 501 is the first course, and I'll be teaching that course on aquaculture production systems. Aqua 502 will be taught by Jason Mann. Jason, could you just introduce yourself and a little bit about the course?
Justin, you'd like me to say something now?
Yeah, Jason, just please introduce yourself and a sentence or two about the course that you're teaching.
Sure. So I actually was in your shoes back in 1981 till 87. I went to UBC. I studied in Faculty of Agriculture at that time, animal sciences, in dairy and swine. And then I did a Master of Science degree in protein chemistry. And I started working for a feed company in 1987 called EWAS. It's a Norwegian, Swedish-based international feed company. And I had a lot of opportunity to use the skills that I learned at school. But I learned a lot on the job too, but it gave me an opportunity to get into the field. And 29 years later, 7 different roles in the company, and each one was a building block onto the next thing. And I'm a nutritionist for most of that time. And the last 4 years as a managing director for North America for our feed supply to the North American farmers. And then I retired from there end of 2016. And I started working for a company called Riverence, which is owned privately, based in Idaho. So we're raising trout, land-based. And it's the reason for changing is because I think we can adopt a lot of these things that are learned in salmon farming and help the trout sector grow faster domestically. And my role there is director of nutrition. So I design the diets and I work with the owner into how he wants to design the diets when he's not writing TV shows. It's kind of interesting field that a lot of different people from different backgrounds are getting into aquaculture now. It's not traditional farming, but it's a lot of people that are interested to improve the food supply, do it better. And a lot of the things that Justin described about efficiency of converting feed to edible meat. So I think helping folks learn in the skills that they don't have naturally. And so I think what I would say about our course, fish nutrition, feeds and feeding. This is really a practical application of elements of nutrition. And what I try to do is, since I'm working in industry, I'm trying to bring the things that are most important to us as future employers in students that are graduating, and try to highlight the key points that are relevant to consumers. And young people are the future of consuming seafood, and we need to get people interested in communicating and marketing and telling about the fish and what's fed to the fish. This kind of thing is really, really important. So, there's the academic side, the technical side, but the communication side and telling about all the health benefits of oily fish, farmed fish, is really an untapped resource, and we need to do that. And one final comment I'll make is, in the US, each year about 700,000 people die from heart disease. And if they were to instead eat oily fish like farmed salmon or trout, for example, twice a week, you would reduce that mortality by at least 2 years of 40% of that 700,000. So close to 300,000 people would live at least 2 years longer. And there are 27 maladies that are related that can be delayed with oily fish. So this thing is open-ended, and nutrition and feeds and feeding and all of this stuff is pretty much all connected. And all of the courses, there's a lot of overlap in them too. So I better stop there. It's more than one sentence or two sentences. It's exciting.
Thank you, Jason, for that. Yeah, really good. And so you will learn a lot more about fish nutrition, feeds, and feeding from Jason in the program. The next course that we have, Aqua 503, is fish health. And Dr. Barry Milligan is on the line. Barry, if you could just also introduce yourself and just a little bit about your course.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a fish vet, have been for the last 20 years in the industry. I've held a number of roles, right from just being a fish vet right up to director of production and research first for Grieg Seafood and then with Cermak. I started out doing a master's degree in deep sea hydrothermal vent community ecology, of all things, back in the 80s. And then I actually worked with Dave Fraser at UBC when he was in Ottawa for a number of years studying animal behavior and welfare, and then got into aquaculture. Recently, I've been involved with all of the Cohen Commission investigations. So I've been on the steering committee and member for all of those, looking at interactions between fish farms in the Discovery Islands and sockeye salmon. And most recently, and Wendy as well, we've developed care standards, the first care standards for fish in Canada. That should be coming out later this fall. So that's been interesting. And as far as the course, I take maybe a slightly different approach as a veterinarian. I introduce all the important pathogens to the industry in Canada and globally. So viruses, bacteria, parasites, but I tend to do it from a sort of a case study approach. So, right from, water source, epidemiology, biosecurity, through to how different systems impact disease and fish health and welfare, all the way through to treatments, and then the final product. So I tend to take that sort of overarching approach. And yeah, I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Yeah, very good. Thanks a lot for that, Barry. We will open it up to questions here shortly, but I appreciate that. And yeah, the students are in very good hands there on the fish health side. Really a renowned fish veterinarian in British Columbia. So appreciate that, Barry. The next course is finfish genetics and reproduction in aquaculture. And Wendy Vandersteen is also here on the line. Wendy, if you could please introduce yourself as well and little bit about your course.
Sure, thanks, Justin. So as Justin indicated, I teach genetics and reproduction in aquaculture, and my background in aquaculture has involved both, or I guess not both, but it's involved academia, government, and industry, so all three facets. Within these roles, I've been looking at the effect of genetics on things like behavioral ecology, physiology, conservation, nutrition, so quite a wide perspective. And so the course discusses, my main objective for the course is to provide a basic understanding of the language and the concepts, to have critical discussions and critical thinking about the role of genetics in aquaculture. And I'm also incredibly passionate and excited about the potential that exists for aquaculture if you consider other ag industries like cattle, chickens, pigs. They're so far ahead of selection for production. And aquaculture just has so much potential. And not just from a genetic selection perspective, but all aspects of the industry. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Wendy. So you'll learn a lot about every aspect of that field. Super knowledgeable person that we were able to get. So appreciate having Wendy on board here, and some interesting field trips as well. And the next course that we have here is Aqua 505, Ecological Sustainability of Aquaculture. And we have Andrea Frommel here on the line as well. Andrea, if you could please give an introduction and introduce your course.
Sure thing. So I come from the academic side. I'm a fish physiologist and got my PhD in Germany. And after that, I worked in a lot of different countries in Europe, including Sweden and Norway, Great Britain, and then in the US. And now I'm here at UBC in Canada as the newly appointed faculty member for aquaculture. So I research mainly the effects of environmental change on fish development, physiology, etc. And in the course, we'll be talking about different impacts of aquaculture and how to increase the sustainability of the industry. So we'll be talking about resource use, land, water, and emissions. We'll be talking about pollution and wastewater treatment, feed concerning fish meal, fish oil, and alternatives, a bit of disease, parasites, non-native species and the interactions with wild populations, and then some eco-certifications and governmental regulations. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between my course and the other courses and kind of tying it all in together. And I think that's it.
Right on. Thank you very much, Andrea. And that, it's a really good point that all of the courses are interconnected, as they all impact each other somewhere along the process in the aquaculture industry. The program is rounded out by Aqua 506, Business Concepts in Aquaculture. Jessica Oman, who is from the UBC Sauder School of Business, and Anika Singh is teaching Aqua 507, Seafood Processing. And Anika's been a lecturer and researcher at the faculty for a few years. This is the website and email address if after this webinar you want to look up more about the program or email ask questions. This is where you would find all of the info. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Chris, and we can move ahead with some Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Justin, and thank you all the other instructors for giving your overviews there. I know there was a lot of interest in finding out more about admissions and that sort of thing about the program, so feel free to ask questions live or post them in the chat. We also have Leah Maria Dragon with us, who works in admissions, graduate admissions within the faculty, who will also be able to help with answering some of your questions. So we'll just give you a couple minutes to maybe get your thoughts together and be able to post some questions, or like I say, feel free to ask them live. Okay, and so our first question is, how many applications did you have for the program this year? So we actually have 2 students enrolled this year, and we did get off to a little bit of a slow start, just in terms of getting the program approved and advertising it. And so this year we're starting much earlier, as in now having our webinar in November instead of, I think it was March or April last year. So, or this year. So we're hoping to be able to have a cohort of approximately 15 students, and we will accept applications through the academic year. It will be on a first come, first served basis. So in terms of filling those positions, as soon as the qualified positions are filled, then that will be it. Okay, how recognized is the certificate within the industry? So Justin, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's quite obviously a new program. However, the bulk of the industry knows about the program. It was a couple of years in the making, and a lot of industry had input into the development of the courses, which courses should be taught. So they are well aware of the program. And I think once once students start coming out of the program, it will be easily recognizable. They're involved. Also, there are a lot of people from industry that are giving guest lectures in the program. So they're pretty aware of it.
Okay.
For the next one, time commitment, I can take that as well, Chris. And it's
okay.
it's a full-time program. So for the students this year, that's the feedback, is that it's pretty full-time.
Okay. And also, what academic backgrounds do you expect students to come from? So we are accepting students that have a bachelor's degree. And so we would recommend that you have some basic sciences like biology, that you've done a basic math course, but we're actually very flexible. So also, if you had a background in applied science, so in engineering, you would find the course useful, and there are careers that would fit that background as well. And I don't know if any of the other instructors want to comment on what they see as something that's essential for their course, or how you're able to accommodate students with different backgrounds. Jason, did you have a comment, or?
Yes, I think it's a lot of flexibility, Chris, as you say. I think a base degree generally speaking, is really valid if science is preferred, really. But when it comes down to it, this is trying to connect practical skills and what the industry is doing in a lot of the ways, as well as academic. So I think generally the classes are smaller here, so there's accommodation of knowing the backgrounds and such. And I think it's one of the reasons that some of us are involved in this from an industry point of view is that there really is a shortage of young people coming into the sector, and they're not maybe aware of what's all out there, but it's a really growing opportunities for domestic aquaculture production in North America. So we want to see more folks that are interested and let them know about, who they could work for. We have contacts and connections with most of the different companies, whether they're farming or feed or whoever. So I think a good attitude towards learning new things. I think that's really what it is. And 7 courses, they are fairly complementary. But I think the question Kirsten had about, is it full time? Well, it's 13, 14 weeks. It is full time. But I think even employers perhaps could accommodate that, realizing the benefit for students once they come out of it. So I think, it's our own company, although we're in Idaho, we're also trying to start these kind of programs in the US side to, facilitate new young people coming to work for companies that have a broad background. It doesn't have to be deep into every category, but if you know a little bit about each of these different areas, you're going to be way further ahead. So some thoughts.
It's a good point, Jason. Yeah, thanks for that. I think employees are interested in having their employees be able to gain this knowledge, and yeah, it might be a few months away from work, but probably a good reward for it.
Okay, and our next question was related to RAS systems. So I've heard that BC is transitioning to land-based salmon farming by 2025. So will we have more focus on RAS, or are open pen farms still going to be relevant? Justin, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I love questions like that. That's good. People keeping up to date with what's in the news and so on. The transitioning, very unclear in British Columbia what or if something like that will happen, and under what time frame. So a few things that will cover that. We'll be covering a lot of the government perspective, regulations, and also the types of systems. So we will spend time on all of the different production systems. Definitely, there's a big focus on RAS. And for me, that's definitely my area of expertise. So I do focus a little bit more on that. But we also have to realize that probably 99% of the industry in British Columbia right now is in net pen in terms of production. So it's not a system that we'll ignore. We'll learn about all of the systems and throughout all of the courses. So when we look at the huge overlap in terms of the feed and feeding course, the fish health, environmental impacts, those will apply to all of the courses, will apply to all of the different types of production systems, and they'll be identified where there are differences, but still super important for every type of system. So an answer, that was a long drawn out answer, and I don't even remember if I answered the question or not, but I guess it's there will be focus on RAS as well as all of the other systems.
Great, thank you. Now there's a question. Is it possible to take any prerequisite courses through UBC prior to the program? And certainly, so if you feel like you would like to take courses, you can do that as a unclassified student, and it doesn't have to be UBC either. So there are lots of universities or colleges within BC that would offer courses that if you felt you had a deficiency, didn't have the science background, where you could make these up. Our next question is a little bit related as well. So are there required prerequisite courses that students need to take if you don't have any science background? Yes, and so as I said, we would like you to have biology, chemistry, and math. And so those would be the minimum that you would need to take to do well in the program. And those would just be at a introductory, so first or second year university level. Okay, the next question is, will the course be full-time at UBC campus in Vancouver? So I'm assuming that means in person. That's a little bit of an open question at this point. And so we've actually found that having the courses online has worked well. And so if you are in the UBC area, then you are still able to participate in some of the field trips. And Justin, I don't know if you want to talk about how that went in the realm of COVID.
Yeah, sure. That was the intention, to have the program at UBC. Of course, yeah, with COVID, the classes this year we did online, but still held the field trips. For the most part, they went really well. There were a couple locations where we had to change dates, or one in particular that we couldn't do the field trip. But for the most of the field trips, they went off as planned. Probably 10 field trips, perhaps. And then, and most of those in and around the Lower Mainland. We also did go to the Sunshine Coast and Vancouver Island. But yeah, it would be difficult to take the course if you're not living in British Columbia. You would definitely miss the field trip component, which I think is an important component of it, where you get connected with industry and meet some of the people there and sort of see it for yourself.
So I think we'll be hopeful and think that we will be offering courses on campus next fall, but of course we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now the next question, in terms of professional development, what can students expect? Are you hoping students will be prepared? What will students be prepared to do after the course? Is it geared toward more technical careers? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the idea of the course is to expose the students to a broad range of different topics or areas within aquaculture. So it's the idea is that you get an idea of where your interests are, what parts of aquaculture are most appealing to you, and then you can help steer you down that path. It's not necessarily going into I guess a technical, was that the question? Is it geared towards a technical career? It could be, but not necessarily. So it's giving you the background aquaculture knowledge. It doesn't mean that you can leave the course and be go and manage a farm. But this combined with experience will really move you ahead and give you a big advantage in the industry. Once you build experience as well, to open doors and to really choose the path that you want to go along in the industry. In the follow-up question,
Or just Jason, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think I agree with Justin. And I think the background here in this 7 different courses, it gives a really good foundation. And if someone's interested in communications or being a public relations person for a company, farming company, feed company, fish sales, I think it's an excellent background for that, because you're getting a head start. You have a lot of the names you get to know in the who's who in the industry through these kind of courses with the field trips. And if they're not field trips, we're doing a lot of phone Zoom meetings with different companies. So I think the idea is to really open up your opportunities to be, whether it's technical or public relations, or eventually, like over time, it's easier to grow into a kind of a leadership role because you already have a lot of background in this. So it's a certification program, but it's almost, the courses are very similar to a master's degree, I would say, but they're quite condensed. So I think a lot of us have gone through the science approach, but you also need to have some business background and this kind of thing. And over time, it gives you a good foundation. You can do whatever you want. It just gives you more opportunities, having a broader base. Those are some of my experiences.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And Barry, I think this next question might be right up your alley. So it's related to being a vet with prospects for fish-focused work.
Okay, sorry, what's the question? Is that?
So is there a growing need for these types of jobs in industry? So a fish vet.
Yeah, so basically most of the fish, a lot of jobs open for fish vets, and most of them they can't fill. So there's a shortage of courses being offered in the vet curriculum, and there's a shortage of vets out there. Yeah, I could work 4 jobs if I wanted to tomorrow. It's actually, it's an interesting field to get into. Yeah, so to answer your question, absolutely, there's lots of room for fish vets out there, and that's in industry. It's in regulatory, you know, so CFIA is a big hire of fish vets, DFO, and industry, as well as, you know, feed companies and all those other sort of supplier sort of support companies as well. So there's lots of, and sorry, pharmaceuticals as well. So there's a lot of companies looking for fish vets out there that are dealing with vaccines, with different products and things like that. So.
Okay,
Yep.
There's actually a second part, maybe you've sort of answered it. So how can this program contribute to a possible career in the fish health sector?
I think to follow up on Jason's points, it's a really good introduction to the industry as a whole. So it's not geared for, you know, a very technical job where you're going to be, you know, feeding fish or picking morts and that sort of thing. So it gives you an overall appreciation of the industry. And I think Andrea touched on it. Fish health is one of those sectors in aquaculture that touches on nutrition, on genetics, on systems, on all those things. So by having that broader background, it would be quite useful for a fish health department, for sure.
Thanks, Barry. I don't know, Wendy or Andrea, do you have anything else to add?
Sorry, just trying to unmute.
Okay.
I'll just add that I think one of the strengths of this program is the really strong connections with industry, government, and academia. The perspective I take with my course is to encourage independent thinking and to help facilitate students' interests. So if a student has a particular niche in aquaculture that particularly interests them, I will do the best I can to connect them with people in industry or government. So I think all of us in this course have the same perspective. So there is a lot of opportunity. I just wanted to highlight one of those aspects of this program.
Great, thanks, Wendy. Okay, and it is very close to 1 o'clock. We earlier in the chat, we did post the email for that will take you to either Justin or myself. And if we can't answer your question, we'll certainly find someone who can. And so, oh, and there it is again. So you can make note of that. And please do send us any questions that you might have about the program in the future. And so with that, I would like to thank you again for joining us today. It's hopefully been able to answer some of your questions about the program, and we look forward to perhaps meeting you in the future.
Very good. Thanks, Chris, and thanks everybody for joining, and look forward to connecting with you.
Okay, take care, everybody.
See you guys.